of the challenges that this city faces, but we're also grateful for all the successes that you've wrought. We pray now that you will take full control, and by your leading and guidance and direction, this city can go from strength to strength. Lord, please bless that family that's bereaved right now. Shauna, all the members of the family who are at this time suffering a loss. Comfort them. And now, Lord, this is your moment, and these are your people that you have chosen to lead. Please be with them. Give them clear conscience, open mind, direction, guidance, and even protection, even as they go about their day-to-day activities. Take over, we pray, and we give all glory to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. That was very, very good. If you'd remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Adams, would you lead us, please?
Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have public comment. I have a couple of cards here. If you want to speak under public comment on any subject, please fill out a card and you'll be able to come up for 3 minutes. First, I have Trey Abney. Welcome, Trey. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you make an appearance over here at Sparks once in a while.
Well, it's good. It's good to be here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Trey Abney with the Chamber of Reno Sparks in Northern Nevada. I meant to be here at your last meeting when you received your legislative update, but I wasn't able to make it all the way over here. So I appreciate the time. I just on behalf of the Chamber, I just wanted to publicly thank your staff, the manager, Mr. Mayberry, and Rocky Finseth and his team for the work that they did this past legislative session, in particular on issues that we were able to move the ball forward on a little bit as far as public employee collective bargaining, things that, as you know, we haven't been able to touch in a long, long time. Many local governments across the state were not willing to step up and publicly support some of the changes that needed to be made, and we thought it was a bold, brave move on behalf of this council to do that, and we appreciate that very much. We did not get, let's just say there were a lot of lost opportunities this session. Weren't able to do a lot of the things that needed to be done, but we were able to do some things, and we appreciate the help of, again, Mr. Driscoll and your staff, Mr. Mayberry, for doing that. So I just wanted to give a public thank you to them and thank this council for allowing them to do that and giving them that directive to do that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Trey. Appreciate all your hard work down there, too.
Thanks.
Peggy Rue.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Peggy Rue, R-E-W. I live at 4827 Ravello Drive in Sonoma 2 in Sparks, and my husband and I have been residents here in Sparks for 30 years, and we will continue to be and also be participating members of the society. And when something comes up, I feel the need to bring it to your attention and hope that maybe you can help, mainly because you are a force to be reckoned with. The council we have right now is doing amazing things. I want to publicly thank you for getting rid of the weeds on Sparks Boulevard. But one of the important things to me right now is home builders coming to Sparks. I know you welcome them, you encourage them to come, you encourage homeowners and people to go out and make their biggest investment in buying a home. But what I want to see is home builders having the accountability of after the sale service. 20 years ago, I spent many hours in this chamber with the problem we have with DiLoretto homes. Well, we've got another issue with our home right now that was built as a takeover of the existing Tanamera homes in the vineyards. The service after the sale sucks. And I feel that if they're going to be allowed to be a Sparks business and they're going to have the opportunity to have 2 or 3 or more sites that they're building on, they need to be accountable and help and take care of people after the sale. You can't take a home back to the store and return it if you're not happy with it. You're stuck, and they all of a sudden stop communication, and I think that that is very wrong. There's something wrong with the system if we are going to allow them to do that. They stop communication, they won't return phone calls, emails, nothing. And now what I have right now is not life-threatening. I will love my home. But it's the fact that I did what they wanted, I paid what they wanted. All I want is for them to return the favor and respond to me when I have a problem. And, you know, we get this saying now within builder specifications or builder standards. And whether or not it is, I need a person to respond to me so that I know what's going on. All I get is your case is closed and we're done with you. So the builder is Desert Wind Homes. They have several developments going in, and I would appreciate some help. Lastly, with Roo Crew Collaborations, I am all things pets, and I want to remind everybody with the heat increasing this week that pets can suffer from heat stroke. So I'm going to leave some flyers out front. Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy. And Steve, I don't know who could reach out to Peggy, but maybe community development or legal. I don't know what legally we can do, but maybe somebody could reach out to Peggy and talk with her and see what the problem is, and if we can help, fine. If not,
We'll look into it.
great. Thanks.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Steve.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you.
Richard Salvatore. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Rich Salvatore, and I'm an attorney in Reno. I represent Darcy Latham. She is one of the items on your agenda for today. And what concerned me is that maybe you didn't have the relevant information that you needed. This is a pretty serious case. The issue is whether you should be paying the $300,000 self-insured retention fund, and I firmly support that payment, mostly because I believe it would save the city of Sparks quite a bit of money in the long run. This is not a simple minor injury case. Darcy Latham was shot, and she has incurred in excess of $100,000 in medical bills to date. She's undergone 3 surgeries. She has a permanent disability. In addition to that, she will incur another $100,000 in medical bills over the rest of the course of her life. So, having said that, I do believe this case far exceeds the $300,000 self-insured retention. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer, because the information provided on the website was a letter dated January 2015, which indicated not much information was available except there was a claim. And I can tell you, since that time, we have fully submitted to the insurance company through the city attorney's office 18, 19-page memorandum of law documenting each and every medical bill as well as treatment and what's coming in the future. And I can tell you this claim far exceeds $300,000. So I support that. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Salvatore. We're going to have another opportunity when the item comes up. I think if there's any questions for you, maybe we can do it at that time, but not under public comment.
Well, here's the deal with that. As pointed out, the status of the claim right now is just a claim.
That's correct.
It is not a lawsuit.
It is not a lawsuit.
Because it's simply a claim, not a lawsuit, I am going to advise my clients that there's really not much more we can tell them than what they already know. That what we've provided them, what you've provided them with, in no way does this agenda item attempt to diminish the magnitude of the situation involved with your client, but nevertheless you can see my point here in that I'm going to ask that my client, if they have any specific questions, especially questions about liability, questions about making admissions in an open proceeding such as this not be handled pursuant to an attorney-client session. I think we've tried to explain your position under those meetings authorized by Nevada law, and I think that they've got a pretty good handle on the situation. But nevertheless, we are asking that they pay the deductible to $300,000 or leave it to my office to defend, and in that case, if it's over $300,000, the city will be put on the hook. And that's essentially the business decision we're asking my client to make today.
I understand that.
Okay.
My greatest concern is that there wasn't enough information provided, at least what was on the internet website.
And
I
that,
wanted to make it available if anyone had any questions about what we're talking about.
and that's fine, but right now, our decision tonight is whether or not we should submit this to the insurance company pursuant to our contract with the company, pursuant to their ability to come in and then take over the defense of this case. And as far as more information, I don't think that it's necessary for that decision to be made today.
Thanks, Chet.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, anyone else under public comment? Okay, let's move on then. Approval of the agenda. Anyone who want to take anything out of order? Mr. Lawson?
I want to pull 8.6 and table that item for now.
Okay, so let's just, let's address that when we get to consent items.
Okay.
We'll do that. So let's just approve the agenda as is, and then we'll, when we get to consent items, we'll go ahead and address that. Mr. Smith?
Move to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bybee. Okay, it's moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Please display. Passes unanimously. I might add that there's only going to be 3 people here today. Mr. Schmidt is ill and Ms. Ratty is out of town, so everything will have to be voted on. Well, to pass will have to be 3-0, so anything that passes will have to be unanimously. Just wanted to let you know that. Okay, approval of the minutes, consideration and possible approval of minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting on July 13, 2015. Any omissions, deletions, corrections? Mr. Smith?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, second by Councilwoman Bybee to approve the minutes of July 13th. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, now consent items 8.1 through 8.7. Anybody like to pull one of these? Mr. Lawson?
I do.
Okay.
Surprise. I'd like to pull
8.6?
8.6 for discussion and approve 8.1 through 8.5 and 8.7.
Okay, we have a second? Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Lawson, second by Ms. Bybee to approve 8.1 through 8.5 and 8.7. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 8.6, Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, I think that we need to bring this back when we have a full council. I have a lot of questions on this, and a 25-year agreement is a long time that to encumber future councils.
Armando, is there any rush? We can't delay this till the full council is here for another couple of weeks?
Mayor Martini can certainly wait till the next meeting.
Okay, so we can table it to the next meeting?
And just in the interest of time for next time, Armando, how many approximate parking spaces are there in the parking garage?
There are about 700 parking spaces in the
Okay,
building.
so we're in essence giving them the entire parking garage. Did they assume any liability for that?
Councilman Lawson, basically the original agreement with Sayufi Development for the development of the theater, per that agreement, the city and the agency agreed at that time to provide a 700-space parking structure for the use of the theater.
But we currently do not have an agreement with them that is exclusively their parking.
And it would not be exclusively their parking under the terms of this agreement. It simply means that there has to be 700 space parking structure available for their use. Really what this does is, what it proposes to do is to keep the parking structure as a free parking structure as long as there is a theater operating in that location. But it's not exclusive to their use.
So, but there is no current agreement to provide them with the 700 parking spaces?
There is. There is the original.
So we can have a written agreement? I'd like to see that too.
Yes, the original development agreement with Sayufi Enterprises that resulted in the development of that cinema is where we agreed to provide the 700 space parking structure. This simply addresses whether it's that parking is charged for or not.
Right, which once again I think ties our hands. But once again, I think we should table it to talk with the full council about it, because there's a lot to consider with what's going on in our downtown. Is that something that's prudent for us to give up that right for 25 years?
You want to make a motion then, Ed, to table it until next
I'm going to make a
meeting?
motion that we table 8.6 until we can have the full council
For
here.
next meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith to move this to our next meeting. Any particular questions? Did you have something, Armando? Okay. Okay, seeing no questions, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks. Thanks, Armando. Okay, moving on to general business, consideration and possible approval of renewing the city's membership with the Western Nevada Development District. Who's doing this one? Mr. Driscoll, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Steve Driscoll for the record. During the budget process, we set monies aside to different organizations and different groups that we belong to through memberships. The Western Nevada Development District is one of those. The council has asked in the past, before those bills are processed and the membership is actually paid, that it's brought back for confirmation by the council. This will be time and place for either confirmation or rejection of the $5,000 annual membership.
Okay, questions? Ms. Bybee.
Manager Driscoll, do you feel like the benefit, what kind of benefit does the city obtain from this $5,000 investment? I read about the things that they do, and do you feel that they provide us with a lot of resources or benefits for the city of Sparks?
If I could, Mrs. Bybee, if I could defer to Mr. Lawson, as he's a member of the board, and he could let us know the things that have been accomplished and that they're contemplating in their next operating cycle.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's come a long way in just a year and a half, I guess, that we've been members. We're in the process of getting together an SBA loan program that will have up to about, I think it's $7.5 million to loan out. And that would go across all counties, not just USDA money, which is pretty much limited to the cow counties. Or I shouldn't say that, to the other counties outside of Washoe.
Rural, yeah.
I just love those people, so I love that rural area. But we've come a long ways, and what really the biggest benefit is the relationships that we've built with the other 8 counties, that we're now talking to each other. We never did that before, and we have mutual agreement on a lot of different things, and especially with Tesla and Switch and some of our water issues, we now have an open line of communication. So for me, the $5,000 it's not a lot of money, but it has opened a lot of doors for us to keep the communication lines open.
I would agree with that, Ed. It's not a lot of money, $5,000, and there's good communication going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that we need to be involved in down there, and it's great to see that you're on the board and stuff. So I think it's well worth it.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we're getting.
I missed the meeting, so they made me president.
Geez, I wonder how that worked out.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're getting a bang for our buck.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
I move to approve renewing the city's membership with the Western Nevada Development District for the year ending 5/16 term.
Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve 9.1 membership to the Western Nevada Development District. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 9.2, consideration and possible approval of the SIR payment to Travelers Insurance in connection with claim made by Darcy Latham. You doing this, Mr. Adams, or?
Pursuant to a attorney-client meeting that we've had, I think we've explained the facts to you surrounding this particular claim. I think that given the nature of the injuries and the claimed amount due, that it would be appropriate for the city to, pursuant to our contract, to give this over to our insurance company to defend on behalf of the city. The council's other option is to allow the city attorney's office to defend this. However, in the event that a judgment award was entered against the city for over $300,000, we would have to pay that. And I believe the claim damages, the injuries, the bills to date would in the eyes of many jurors probably be over $300,000.
Okay, questions for Mr. Adams? Mr. Lawson?
I don't have any questions. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on the attorney-client privilege meetings we're allowed by the state of Nevada, and I understand for the public there's not a lot of information out there, but trust me, we received a bunch of information, and this was a pretty easy decision. So I'm going to make a motion that we move to approve the transfer of funds to Travelers Insurance in the amount of $300,000.
Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lawson, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve 9.2. Any further discussion? Did you have some room? No. Okay, seeing none, please vote. Ron, I think, needs to vote. Okay, please display. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Adams. Okay, Mr. Salvatore? All right. 9.3, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a complement change to add one victim advocate. City Council approved the grant for the refunding of this position on July 13th, 2015. Welcome, Chief and Mindy.
Well, good afternoon. Brian Allen, Chief of Police. For the record, Mayor, members of council, with me is Mindy Falk, who is just making sure I get this right this time. Last meeting we approved, or you approved, thank you very much, for the funding of a grant position for a victim advocate. There should have been a subsequent item adding the position to the complement of the police department, which I neglected to put on there, which was quickly brought to my attention by your tremendous HR staff. So once again, a reminder that you're taking cops and making them administrators. So with that, I'm asking that you add to the complement the victim advocate, which you approved the funding for last meeting. If you have any questions, I'll...
Questions for Chief or Ms. Falk? Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve to increase the complement at the Reno. Oh, I am so sorry. Can I start over?
Reno's going to go for that.
Oh, my goodness.
I move to approve to increase the complement at the police department to include one additional victim advocate for a total of 2.
Mr. Smith.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 9.3. Consideration for a new victim advocate adding to the complement. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's move into public hearing items. 10.1, public hearing, consideration and possible approval of a conditional order vacating street right-of-way with reservation of easements for right-of-ways located in Victorian Square as contemplated in the Victorian Square Property Exchange Agreement approved by the Sparks City Council on June 22nd, 2015. Mr. Martini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, John Martini, city engineer. As the council will recall, on June 22nd of this year, City Planner Armando Analysis was before you seeking your approval of the Victorian Square Property Exchange Agreement. As the council will recall, among other things included in that agreement were abandonments of public right-of-way such that we could reconfigure the parcels for future use as well as for the contemplated land exchange with Welltown Holdings. I'm before you today seeking your approval of these abandonments. They're shown on the figure that was included in your staff report and before you here. It's 4 separate areas. We have the abandonment of parcel I, which is this L-shaped abandonment of right-of-way that sits outside the current parcel. In our center Victorian Square area, abandonment of parcel P in the old BC Alley. This piece will be abandoned. The piece in front and adjacent to Victorian Avenue is to be abandoned by this order, as well as this area south of abandonment parcel J, such that I believe Armando showed this figure during his presentation on the 22nd. The areas in red will be what the future parcels will end up being. And in order to get there, as you can see, this section here, the L-shaped one, will be, upon abandonment, that'll be added to the existing parcel, then through the subsequent merger and re-subdivision parcel map that we'll be filing as part of the agreement. This will become the configuration of the downtown parcels ultimately. Staff has reviewed the request for abandonment, all the legal documents. Public notice has been given to the utility companies as well as the adjacent property owners, as well as advertised in the paper. Staff supports the conditional order of abandonment. Reservation of easement is included in the order, so any utility companies, I've heard from all of them, there's utilities out there, easements will be reserved, and staff is seeking approval.
Questions for Mr. Martini? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public want to speak to this particular item? Okay, just come on up, state your name for the record, and let us know what's on your mind, sir.
Mayor, members of the council, Dan Reeser with the law firm of Fenimore Craig, and I was here with you on July 22nd when we approved the agreement with Wolfhound. I just wanted to very briefly put on the record that the exchange agreement with Wolfhound relates to the abandonment you see on the right and the left, but the Wolfhound agreement does not deal with the abandonment in the center parcels. So I didn't want you to be confused if you had remembered that the Wolfhound transaction only was the right and the left. That is correct, but the same abandonment order, I believe your city engineer is going to add changes to the parcels in the center. Be happy to answer any questions, and we'd ask that you approve the abandonment as presented by staff.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Question or motion? Mr. Smith?
He's got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So have we taken care of all, with this, we'll take care of all the property exchange that need to happen for Silver Wing to move forward?
Mondo?
Armando Ornelas, City Planner. Councilman Lawson, members of the City Council, and Mayor Martini. This is a step towards that. Basically, these abandonments allow for the creation of the proposed parcels. We still need to basically execute the exchange of the parcels, but with these abandonments, we are in a position to complete the mapping and then exchange parcels. And to address your question specifically, yes, that would then allow us to acquire parcel 23 on the far west side there on the map of the blue, the oddly shaped parcel, which is the one that we would be exchanging for with Wolfhound.
Okay. And so has that taken place, the exchange with Wolfhound, or do we have to do this first?
We have to do this first.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, looking for a motion. Thanks. Mr. Smith?
I move to approve the conditional order vacating street right-of-way with reservation of easements for rights-of-way located in Victorian Square as submitted by staff.
Do you have a second, Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 10.1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 10.2 is public hearing, consideration and possible approval of a request from Wolfhound Holdings, LLC, to the City of Sparks for the abandonment of a portion of the 12th Street right-of-way and the abandonment of a portion of Victorian Plaza Circle right-of-way. Mr. Martini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Martini, City Engineer. Before you this afternoon with a request for abandonments again, this time from Wolfhound Holdings. Members of the council may remember seeing this in April of 2014. It came before you. It was discussed and then withdrawn from the applicant. It's back today. The first area to be considered for abandonment is on your screen. It is a remainder parcel of 12th Street that was granted to the city on April 25th, 1904 by tract map 116. Over the years, construction of Interstate 80, changes in downtown infrastructure, that piece of 12th Street became and has functioned as a parking lot between the Nugget and the motel to the west. Wolfhound is requesting its abandonment. Staff has reviewed the legal descriptions for this parcel, taken a look at what infrastructure is out there, has reserved easements within the order vacating, and is supportive of its vacation. The second piece is a 0.46 square foot encroachment of the Nugget Tower within our sidewalk. It was located during the ALTA proceedings during the purchase of the property. Wolfhound is requesting, I'll zoom in a little bit, that the corner abandonment be allowed. Again, staff has reviewed the legal descriptions. All public noticing has been done twice now, and we are supportive of the abandonment, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Questions for Mr. Martini? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I'll open to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Come on up, sir. Just state your name for the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Craigie Tim. I'm a lawyer with Fenimore Craig, representing Wolfhound Holdings on this matter. We were here in April. We're sort of in the same situation, but I think there was some concern from the council at that time that Wolfhound wasn't working as well as it could have with the city, and I think, as the last item showed, that those days are past. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I hope you'll approve this matter.
Questions? Go ahead.
I think that's wonderful. We come a 180 on this whole thing, so we're counting on you guys to continue this through, because I think it's only good for not only downtown Sparks, but it's also good for the Nugget.
I think we agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action. Any questions? Not looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve the abandonment portion of 12th Street right-of-way and for the abandonment of the portion of the Victorian Plaza Circle right-of-way as submitted by staff.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve 10.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 10.3 is a public hearing, consideration and possible approval of resolution number 3286, a resolution authorizing the Financial Services Department to establish an interfund loan to the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Fund and/or the Community Development Block Grant Fund and/or the Sparks Grant and Donations Fund from the general fund as needed. Go ahead.
Hi, Debbie Kinder, Accounting Manager. I am here before you requesting authorization for an interfund loan because NRS 354-6118 says that if any fund goes negative cash, then they have inherently received a loan from another fund, and therefore an interfund loan has occurred and a public hearing must occur beforehand. Our grant funds are reimbursement based. One in particular is negative most often. And by going before you and getting an interfund loan approved at the beginning of the year, authorizing the Finance Department to issue those loans, then you will have avoided an NRS violation, hopefully. Should have been here last meeting, but my fault.
Okay, questions for Debbie? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action or questions. Ms. Bybee?
I make a motion?
Sure.
I move to approve resolution number 3286 and authorize an interfund loan to the grant funds of the City of Sparks.
Do you have a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 10.3, resolution number 3286. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 10.4, public hearing, consideration and possible approval of resolution number 3287, a resolution authorizing the Financial Services Department to establish an interfund loan to the general fund from the Motor Vehicle Maintenance Fund of the City of Sparks as necessary for general fund cash flow purposes. Go ahead, Debbie.
Here again, Debbie Kinder, Accounting Manager. The general fund very rarely goes negative cash, but due to timing of revenues and a fairly regular outflow of payroll, 2% of our days are negative. They're generally small. So this would authorize an interfund loan of $1 million, no more than 30 days, interest-free, same concept as the grants, but very rarely will it occur.
Questions? Okay, this is a public hearing item. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the public like to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action or a motion or questions. Mr. Smith.
I move to approve resolution number 3287 and authorize an interfund loan to the general fund of the City of Sparks.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve resolution number 3287. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Moving right along. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, 10.5 is a public hearing and possible approval of resolution number 3285 for the sale by the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks of 8 parcels totaling approximately 4.03 acres. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the City Council, Armando Ornelas, City Planner. I will note, first of all, that there is a companion item to this one on the redevelopment agency agenda, as was the case last month when we brought to you the Wolfhound property exchange agreement. The City Council and the redevelopment agency have somewhat different roles. In the case of the City Council, we're asking you to take 2 actions today. The first of these is the adoption of a resolution that makes certain findings and approves the sale by the redevelopment agency of these 8 parcels. So that's to comply with NRS 279-6303, which requires that the agency obtain the approval of the City Council by resolution and after a public hearing in order to sell property. And then the second requested action is approval on behalf of the city of the disposition and development agreement. The purpose of the agency's sale of these parcels is for the developer to construct the Fountain House at Victorian Square project on these properties. Could be, and so just in order to help you get oriented here is the movie theater. Victorian Avenue is here, and then our public plaza is here. The parcels that we are discussing under this disposition development agreement are these parcels here, which are parcels 3, 13, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Parcel 23 is the parcel that is currently owned by Wolfhound, and that we are taking the steps towards acquiring so that we can then turn around and sell it to Silverwing. And the entity here is SWD Quarry FVS. That's the project-specific LLC that Silverwing has established for this project, but I'll refer to them this afternoon as just the developer. And then the other 2 parcels are parcels 4 and 6, which are the 2 grass pads in front of the movie theater. The sale of the property is expected to occur in 2 escrows. The first escrow, which I anticipate could close within 45 to 60 days, is assuming we can satisfy all the conditions preceding, one of which, of course, is the acquisition of parcel 23 from Wolfhound, would be these parcels, which in the agreement are referred to as the agency residential parcels. So that's parcel 3, 13, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And on these parcels, there would be the developers proposing to construct 220 multifamily residential units plus a clubhouse and a pool. And then the second escrow would be for parcels 4 and 6. Those are the 2 parcels in front of the theater. And on those two parcels, the developer is proposing to build approximately 9,230 square feet of restaurant and retail space. Essentially, what we'd be looking at is restaurant space, on the front edge towards the plaza, and then 8 apartments above each of those spaces. The proposed sales price for the residential parcels, the first escrow, is $934,000. The proposed sales price for the second escrow for the 2 parcels in front of the theater is $271,000. Those the sales prices are based on appraisals that were obtained by the agency. We had both what we refer to as summary appraisals and review appraisals, and there is an adjustment in the appraisals for extraordinary site work. Essentially, because this is area that was previously developed, for example, parcel 3 was essentially all single-family houses. There are foundations. They're potentially there, and a lot of them compacted fill. So essentially, there's going to have to be an over-excavation and importation of fill. So there's an adjustment in the appraised value for that. Parcels 4 and 6 were also previously developed in the developer's preliminary investigation of these parcels. For example, there are concrete slabs under portions of these theaters in front of these parcels, so those will have to be removed. So there were adjustments in the appraised values for those purposes, and so the values reflect that. Nevertheless, we consider these sales prices to be fair at market value, and therefore would not trigger prevailing wage under NRS 279-500. Another aspect of the development agreement is, of course, the schedule. There is an early termination date of April 30th, 2016, which is essentially if the developer has not moved forward and obtained, completed their putting their financing in place and actually started construction by that date, so basically about 9 months from now, then this agreement would just automatically terminate. There is force majeure clauses in there, so if something out of the control of the developer were to arise, then there would be adjustments for that. He is anticipating a much more aggressive schedule. He's looking to be under construction, as early as September, but we didn't want an overly aggressive schedule in the development agreement. There's an absolute deadline in the agreement of September 30th, 2018, which is basically the date by which all of this construction is to be completed. There are the first and second escrows are tied to basically due diligence, in part, for example, because there are some additional abandonments, minor abandonments that City Engineer Martini will be bringing to you on a couple of corners here. These parcels don't exist as they are ultimately to be conveyed to the developer, and so, for example, title policies can't be completed or prepared until that's done. But we're expecting that to be done over the next few weeks. The other conditions have to do, obviously, with the agency or the city completing cleanup of parcel 21, which is the parcel here at the corner. That is underway. We hope to be complete with that as early as this middle of this week. And in fact, we're preliminarily scheduling some paving work for the latter part of this week, but that is a condition precedent to this agreement. And then, of course, we need to conclude our acquisition of parcel 23 after completing our exchange with Wolfhound. With regard to parcels 4 and 6, the parcels in front of the theater, the deadline for that is further out. It is the start of construction on these mixed-use buildings is December 31st, 2016. That's tied in part to waiting and seeing whether Cinemark is going to extend their lease on the theater. If there's, were there, in the event that they did not, and there's nothing necessarily to suggest that they have any intention of not doing so, but an operating theater is important to a decision as to whether or not to construct these buildings that are proposed to have restaurant space in them. So that's the reason for that later deadline for that second escrow. On the agency's part, the principal condition precedent to our agreeing to sell the property to them is that they have their financing in place. So obviously, we're going to be reviewing the financing with the developer before we go to schedule a close of escrow. I will make note that there's no clawback provision in this agreement, and by that I refer to something that would allow us to buy the parcels back. It would give us the right to buy the parcels back if the developer didn't move forward. That's something we've attempted to utilize in past agreements. It's always problematic because it makes it difficult for the developer to put their financing in place. Mr. Witt and I discussed it at great length with our legal counsel, and we felt that really the best approach in this case was to not prematurely close an escrow, but making sure that everything was in place. One of the things that's different in this case than in some of the previous efforts at developing a project downtown is that Silverwing Development is much further along. They have a lot of their, not all, but they have a lot of their entitlement work done. They spend a fair amount of money on design, et cetera, et cetera. So Mr. Witt has demonstrated a readiness to proceed that is not necessarily normal for this point when we would bring a development agreement to the City Council and the redevelopment agency. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and do my best to address any questions you may have.
Questions for Armando? Mr. Smith.
Armando, concerning the exclusive agreement we have on that other piece of property, when does the clock start ticking? Did it already start for 2 years? Did it start ticking, or?
It started with the exclusive negotiating agreement. So with that would be parcel 9 over here,
Yeah.
Councilman Smith. That started back in December.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Bybee.
Armando, you were talking about an adjusted appraisal because of some of the cost for excavation and everything. So is your 1.2 million include, the numbers you're giving us here, is the adjusted appraisal?
That is the adjusted, yes.
Okay, so that's there's no different numbers than what we're being given.
No,
right here.
those are the proposed sales prices.
Okay, and then I did have a question on parcel 21 with the cleanup. Do we know what the cost is on that? You said it's almost completed, but do we have a cost on what that cleanup was?
I don't know that we have an exact cost as of today. I think we were in the range of about $100,000 as of sometime last week.
Okay, but that obviously it's almost it'll be ready for construction when construction on this starts. Will be.
Yeah,
should be through the cleanup and ready for the developer to move on.
That's certainly our intent,
Okay.
And in fact, we obviously would like to have it ready as our bigger events move forward this year. But it's not done till it's done.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action or questions. Mr. Smith.
Make a motion. Number 1, I move to approve resolution number 3285, approving the redevelopment agency sale of 8 Victorian Square parcels to SWD Quarry FVS LLC.
Do you have a second? Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Bybee to approve the first part of the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, second part, Mr. Smith.
I move to approve the disposition and development agreement AC 5172 with SWD Quarry FVS LLC for execution by the city.
Do you have a second? Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to approve the second motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Armando. Appreciate it. Good job. Okay, moving on. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement, AC 5184, between the City of Sparks and Operating Engineers Local Number 3 Advisory Unit for the period of July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2017, I'm sorry.
2030.
Yeah, well,
That's a pretty good deal.
I was dreaming. I was dreaming.
We did really well.
Severson, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Chris Severson, Administrative Services Director, for the record. Before you have item number 10.6, which is a bargaining agreement between Operating Engineers Local Number 3 Supervisory Bargaining Unit. This agreement is for the period July 1st of 2015 through June 30th, 2017. We have been meeting since January, and the union and the city bargaining team have come to an agreement, and the union has ratified this agreement. Substantive elements, you'll see a pay increase of 3% July 1st, 2015, and 2% effective July 1st, 2016. We are including a 1% reduction in that first 3% to allow for union business in accordance with the new NRS regulations. We have capped that to the 1%, so we will each fiscal year calculate the value of 1% of pay and pay-driven benefits and track the employee hours and cap them at 1%. We also have some changes in group health. Our eligibility period has shortened. We have new language on group health committee to allow expanded participation, not voting changes. And we also have included the cash out provision for sick leave conversion to allow retirees to take their sick leave conversion and purchase insurance elsewhere. We also have increased tuition reimbursement to $1,500 and added a deferred compensation match of up to $25 per pay period. And lastly, an annual leave cash out of 40 hours per year with a balance of 160 hours. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Ms. Severson? Mr. Lawson.
So we talked about just giving them 3% and they conduct their union business on their time or write a check back to the city. So what you're telling me is we're going to give them the 1% time.
Yes, sir, but we're going to cap it at the 3%, which I believed was the...
Can't support it.
Is that it, Ed? Mr. Smith?
This is what we talked about at the last
Yes, sir.
client.
That's closed door session.
A closed-door session, and this is what we asked for.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
That was my understanding, was that we were to look at options that would cap it.
We were going to pay them 2%, and then we would assume the responsibility of the other 1%, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to offer them 3% and let them pay for it.
There were several options that were
Right.
on the table.
Okay, so.
Yes, sir.
This is what we asked for, as far as.
My understanding was that we were asked for a cap equal to 1%.
Right. Mr. Manager, is that the way you, is this what we asked for at our last?
Yes, sir. There were 2 points. One was the 3% and payback full. The option that you also gave your staff at the time was to develop a value for the 1% and an accounting methodology, and that is what, of the two that were presented to the association agreed to the second with the cap, which was within the purview that you gave your staff to negotiate.
And I believe that was about a $50,000 difference.
Less, yes.
Less, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee.
This is a tough one because the state legislature came up with this new ruling on companies not paying union work. When you're
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
union work, that cities or companies that have union employees, the point of the legislation was not to pay for union work, that's the union takes care of that or the employees do on their own time. So this is tough for me because in essence we're getting around that by giving everyone else 2% raises, but we're giving them 3% and they're giving back the 1%, which is the union. It's a way around it, and I'm not comfortable with that because I think there was a point to the statute, which I agree with the statute of not paying for union work. And so it's hard for me to support that, even though in discussions we're looking for a way to, resolve and come somewhere in the middle. I get that. We're trying to meet somewhere in the middle with them, but I support what the legislature did, and so I have trouble supporting this because it's not what the intent of that law was.
During the process,
we went through the closed-door session. We gave the staff 2 options. They came up with 2 options. The union accepted one of the options. I mean, this is what we asked for. I don't care what
It's,
the legislation says. We asked for this. It's been negotiated. The union wants to do it. I think it's time to move on here. We've been negotiation on and on and on, back and forth, up and down.
It's
Let's
a matter
get
of
this thing over
tracking the
with.
hours and them writing us a
Exactly.
check or us tracking the hours.
Nobody's getting away
It's,
with anything here.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Good point. What's the difference?
We track it on the time cards.
Yeah.
You said we're not
Otherwise,
tracking the
we would
hours.
have
They're
to-
not tracking the hours, but now we're going to track the hours. So
Yes, sir, we are going to track the hours.
Yes.
We are tracking the hours on the payroll and capping
Well,
it at the
I'll
value
tell-
of
I'll
1%.
change my opinion, but, and I want to revisit it in 2 years, and I want a very good accounting of it. 'cause
Yes, sir.
It
Well, that
just
will happen
isn't-
automatically, yeah.
It's
Yes,
just
sir.
not right to me. We're supposed to separate that out. The people are paying for employees to come up with ways to negotiate with the city. I don't think that was the intent.
We will provide an accounting to you.
Ms. Bybee?
I guess I've got to ask, in your opinion, is would the union in this case not accept? They didn't want to give up. Basically, they didn't want to give up the pay for union work, and so this was a way to compromise. And do we have? Is our problem in our negotiations? Like the mayor said, we put out a couple options. This is what they would accept. I guess my question is, if we did not accept this, then where does that take us? Where do we go? Back to the table and
Yes.
tell me where we go from there.
Mr. Driscoll, go ahead.
Steve Driscoll for the record. Several things are going on here and are part of the conversation and why negotiations take the time that they do. It was determined that within the state law there were several options that were intended to satisfy the problem that's being discussed by this council. At the end of the day, one of the options that was contemplated by the law was a negotiated settlement between the bargaining units and the municipalities for the purpose of not paying for union time. In these particular negotiations, it was very clear through the negotiations with the bargaining unit that our OE3 units were out of market more than 2% that we were suggesting on an overall. While the original discussion was much, much higher, with a lot of analysis, it was determined that 3% in the first year would be more responsible to be towards market than to be anything less than that. Clearly could be more. Your team, with that analysis, determined that 3% was a reasonable ask. The union then, with the change in the law, determined that while 3 was reasonable and would be worthy of going to the next step, which would be arbitration or fact-finding, that they would be willing to meet the law and to meet the market needs of their organization by giving the 1% back to offset those costs as contemplated by the law. So in this case, I believe that both sides have been diligent to meet the intent of the new NRS adjustments on 288. It also was satisfying some desire by this council, as stated in the past, to be close to market as we can, normally the plus or minus 5%. And I think in this case, both sides have been reasonable. It could have gone a lot. We could be going to arbitration on a much higher number than 3%. And so with that in case, I believe that we've met the requirements that were set to staff by the council. And we think we've met the requirements of 288. And since it's new to us, I certainly appreciate the frustration with the theoretical intent and the accounting. We, on both sides, want to make sure that the accounting is done properly. The union will be our partner in this particular discussion. And when we get 2 years down the road, if there's an adjustment that's needed, we will show the council the accounting, and we will take their direction for the next negotiation cycle. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee, go ahead.
Thank you for that clarification. I think the market obviously is also a factor heavily in all of these negotiations and what the market is for any of our work groups. On the second year, it's 2% then, 3% the first year and 2% the second. So there's no 1% factored out of
There's
that
not a new
second year?
1% added on. It's a 1% ongoing, but no, there's not a new 1%.
So original 3, and then an additional 2%.
Yes,
And the
ma'am.
1% continues on because
ma'am.
it's a 2-year contract. So that 1% is factored in both years.
Yes, ma'am.
But the additional, the other, so
You don't have to
3%.
do a new 1% every year.
It's
It is
already
carried forward.
incorporated in the first year.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the contract. And then that will tell us, too, what our numbers are. By the tracking,
Yes, ma'am.
will give us a clearer picture of how many actual, what our cost of union work is to the city, or how much the
That's
dollars.
correct.
The actual dollars that we don't have now, of how much work time has been spent away because of union work, and that'll give us a clearer picture of what that cost is.
That is
for the
correct, and
city.
I would be happy to provide that to you at the
Okay.
end of the fiscal year next year.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or action. Mr. Lawson?
So this is where I expressed my frustration in our closed door too. So we're going to assume the 1% from now on, although we're not giving them a 1%. And my suggestion was we gave them the 3, we give them the 3 next year, and we account for time. If we continue to give away 1%, it's not on the books anywhere. It's not in their raise. So eventually, after a couple of years, that's just an expected. So it's, to me, it's like winning a lawsuit and then just saying, never mind. The intent of the law was to not allow that people wouldn't pay for union negotiations to occur during work time. That was the intent of the law. Now, how you get around that, I get how you get around it. But for me, the intent was not to have union negotiations or meetings on company time.
I believe that the intent was to make the union responsible for those dollars. How they are responsible for the dollars could either come from the union or could be in lieu of an increase or could be done on unpaid time.
Well, I
So
worked
every
for a
union is picking a different method to.
I worked for a union company for 17 years, and union negotiations occurred after work or at a time when it was convenient for people to make it, not occurred on work time. I just have a philosophical problem. But I don't know. I can support it for 2 years, but we better have a great accounting.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it goes against everything I believe in the way you run a railroad, and that just, to me, is not the way you run a railroad, because the lawsuit was one for the people. It wasn't one for us. It wasn't one for them. It was one for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
You know, to me, this is what we agreed on. We got exactly what we asked for in our last closed-door session. But I fear that if I make a motion to approve this today, that it'll fail, and I don't want it to fail. So I'll make a motion that we table this till next meeting.
Let me ask a question. If you make a motion and nobody seconds it, then it automatically dies like there's no action. Is that not correct?
That's true, but if somebody does second it and then we have one no vote,
Yeah.
it fails.
But you can make the motion to table.
I just did make the
You
motion
can
to table.
to table.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
To bring it before, before full council.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Bybee to table until next meeting, Ron?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next meeting. Everyone understand the motion? Okay, questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, please vote. Okay, passed unanimously on the table. So 10-6 is tabled till next meeting. Everyone understand that? Okay. So 10-7 is the same deal, is it not?
Yes, sir.
So
It is the agreement for the non-supervisory bargaining unit, which is 10-7.
Okay, so obviously it's going to go the same way. So let me open the public hearing. We'll have the public hearing, and then we can table this too. Is that okay? Is that okay, Mr.? Okay. Open the public hearing on 10-7. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Seeing no one, we'll close it and bring it back to council for action. Mr. Smith?
I move to table 10.7 and bring it back at our next scheduled meeting.
Do you have a second? Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to table 10.7 till the next meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 10.8 is consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement, AC 5182, between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association, non-supervisory, for the period July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2017. Ms. Severson, go ahead.
Yes, sir. This it is number 10.8 is an agreement between the Sparks Police Protective Association non-supervisory bargaining unit and the city. We again have been meeting since January. The union has ratified this agreement, and we are now presenting it to City Council for approval. Elements of this agreement are a 2% cost of living raise effective July 1st, 2015, a pay range adjustment also effective July 1st, 2015, 2% COLA effective July 1st, 2016, also with a range adjustment. I believe that we discussed with the council the need for market adjustments at the lower end. We also have included a new position called a police recruit, which is to allow us to hire police recruits into the academy. We also have amended the contract to take care of union business on paid leave or unpaid time. The group health insurance has been amended, as we discussed before, for eligibility, the cash-out provision, and the expanded participation on the group health plan. So I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions for Chris? Mr. Lawson?
This is what I'm more accustomed to seeing, is that you negotiate with a small group of people with the city directly, so it's on our time, but not so that they negotiate by themselves on our time. So I'm okay with this one.
Anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing item. I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action. Questions, Ms. Bybee, or a motion?
I move to approve the bargaining agreement AC 5182 between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association, non-supervisory, for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2017.
Mr. Smith?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 10.8 AC 5182. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 10.9, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement, AC 5180, between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association lieutenants, period July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2017.
This item, as well as item number 10.10, are the subsets of the Sparks Police Protective Association. You approve the non-supervisory. This is the lieutenant's agreement and is substantively the same as we just discussed. Union is on unpaid time or leave time.
Questions? Okay, this is a public hearing item. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action. Mr. Smith?
I move to approve the bargaining agreement AC 5180 between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association lieutenants for the period July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2017.
Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Lawson to approve 10.9, bargain agreement AC 5180. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 10.10, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement AC 5183 between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association sergeants for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2017. Ms. Severson?
Again, this is the SPPA Sergeants Bargaining Unit. You will note that in this unit, we are recommending a 6% cost of living increase to the initial ranges effective July 1st, 2015. We did find that our sergeant unit was much more below the market average than the other two groups that we were looking at. Other than that, substantively the same, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions for Chris? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing item. I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action. Mr. Lawson.
I move to approve the bargaining agreement AC 5183 between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association's sergeants for the period of July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2017.
Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to approve 10.10 AC 5183. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. This is a recording.
I know.
Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement, AC 5181, between the City of Sparks and the IAFF Local 1265 for the period July 1, 2015 to June 30th, 2017. Ms. Severson.
Yes, the item before you was actually approved in the majority on June 22nd of 2015. Upon final review of the contract, there was some language that was not in the contract that had been agreed to by both units in regards to the approval of tuition reimbursement and the process. So dollar-wise, there was nothing different than what's presented to you today, just some language that was an oversight in the initial contract.
Okay, questions? Mr. Smith.
This is just cleanup.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing item. I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, I'll close it and bring it back to the council for action. Mr. Smith.
I move to approve the bargain agreement AC 5181 between the City of Sparks and the IAFF Local 1265 for the contract period of July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2017.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the bargaining agreement AC 5185 and 5181. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Whew, passes unanimously. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Great work, really, by staff and everyone. Planning's a closed door session. Do we have closed door session, Mr. Driscoll?
No, sir. But if I
What'd I do?
could have the liberty on just a discussion of what we just finished up.
Okay.
I just wanted, as the manager, to thank the negotiation team for the city and the negotiation teams for the various bargaining units. There's an awful lot that was going on during the session, a lot of discussion points, a lot of analysis that was done. And in the 15 years that I've been involved in this, I would say that more work was done to get to final resolutions and go from there. We still have a little bit to go to finish up the last two agreements, but we'll do that. And so I just wanted to publicly thank those folks for the number of hours that they spent, the amount of time that they dedicated to it, and it was equal on both sides for this effort. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Do you have a closed door session? No?
No, sir.
Okay, comments from the public? Anyone want to speak? There are comments from the public. Comments from the city council or city manager? Okay, seeing no further business, we are adjourned. Now we're
Okay, I get the gavel. I get the gavel. Let me get my agenda here. Okay. I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting for July 27th, 2015. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Ratty, absent. Agency members Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Martini.
Here.
Bybee.
Here.
Schmidt, absent. Agency Attorney Adams.
Here.
And Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay. Do I have any public comment? Seeing none, let's move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have anyone who wants to take any items out of sequence or delete or add items?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved to approve by Councilman Smith, approved by Commission Member Martini. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we don't do this, huh? Okay.
No.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Approval of the agenda passes. Approval of the minutes. Do I have approval of the minutes?
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commission Member Martini, seconded by Commission Member Lawson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Item number 6, report of claims and bills approved for payment and appropriate transfers for the period of June 4th, 2015 through July 8th, 2015.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, motion moved to approve by Commission Member Martini, approved, seconded by Member Smith. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's move to number 7, consideration and possible approval of a parking agreement between the City of Sparks, the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, and Century Theaters for use of the Victorian Square parking structure adjacent to the movie theater.
I move to table this item to come back the same time it comes back to City Council.
Okay, I have a motion to table item 7.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Lawson, second by Mr. Martini. Any discussion?
Does this mean we will have to have a special redevelopment meeting next city council meeting? Or do we have to wait till the end of the month?
Call a special meeting.
I can let the manager know, but I suspect that we should probably wait a month.
Okay, thank you.
And if it's a problem, we can always have a special meeting. It's no big deal.
Okay, because Armando, I have a question because we're still under contract until the renewal is not for a year, correct?
Yes.
2016.
The renewal with Sayufi Enterprises, so it's the movie theater operator, Century Theaters. They lease the building, the premises from Sayufi
Right.
Enterprises, and so their renewal is in September of 2016.
Okay, so we're good on time. This isn't going to affect
No,
current discussions or negotiations with them?
No, I don't believe it will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so did we vote then? I have a motion for a table and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 8.0, public hearing, consideration and possible approval of a disposition and development agreement, ACSRA 308, between the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, the City of Sparks, and SWD Quarry FVS LLC, providing for the sale of the redevelopment agency to SWD Quarry FVS LLC of 8 parcels totaling approximately 4.083 acres located within the Victorian Square project area and having assessors parcel numbers. Do you want me to read all the parcel numbers?
No.
The listed parcel numbers for possible action. Okay, do I have discussion? It is a public hearing. Do we do public hearing first and then discussion? Do I have any public hearing or?
Chairwoman Bybee, members of the agency board, Armando Arnell, city planner. The reason for the public hearing, I just wanted to get this on the record, is that per the redevelopment statute 279-472, the agency may sell real property without public bidding. In other words, we dealt exclusively with Silver Wing on this matter. If notice was published in basically the paper of general circulation for 2 weeks, and the agency holds a public hearing. So notice was published on July 15th and on July 23rd. And if you do the public hearing, then you can do so without bidding the property.
Okay.
So this is the development agreement, and that's the only action that the redevelopment agency board needs to take is the approval of the disposition and development agreement.
Okay, because this is the item we had, the parcel numbers were incorrect last time, so we did public hearing on it at the time, didn't we?
We did.
Without taking action.
We did, right. Correct.
Okay. So right now, we just need action. So I hear no public hearing, no public comment. Okay, hearing none, then we can go ahead. I'm looking for action.
Did you open it for public comment? I'm sorry.
I thought I just did. Okay, I was opening it to public comment. Sorry if I ran right through that. Public hearing. I said, do we have public comment?
Yeah.
Which
different.
Legally is a different connotation.
Okay. So
Public
this is a
hearing.
public hearing.
There we go.
Do I have any public comment?
There we go.
I'll get it, I'm just assistant chair, so I'm still learning the verbiage.
You're doing
Okay,
good.
am I good?
You're doing good.
Okay. So I'm seeing no public hearing, no public comment on the public hearing. I'm looking for action.
Move to approve. 8.0 is outlined by staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, now I have a question. How
Got
come there's only
discussion.
one motion on this one?
So in this case, the only responsibility, if you will, or the only action to be taken by the redevelopment agency is to approve the development agreement. They needed, the city council needed to provide consent.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Member Martini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Member Lawson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Comments? Do I have any comments from the public? Do I have comments from the agency and Chief Administrative Officer? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned.
Good job.